Smart people do not always speak first. They understand first, think clearly, and then speak with purpose. Most people do the opposite. Someone asks a difficult question and they rush to answer. Someone disagrees and they become defensive. Someone puts them under pressure and the right words disappear. Later, when the conversation is over, the perfect response suddenly comes to mind. That is not a lack of intelligence. It is a lack of trained thinking under pressure. Speak like a genius. How to think fast before you speak will show you how to change that. You will learn how to slow down mental noise before speaking. Listen for what people actually mean. Ask better questions. Choose stronger words. Stay calm during disagreement, and respond without sounding nervous or confused. You will discover why simple language often sounds more intelligent than complicated speech, why learning more gives you better conversations, and how ordinary daily interactions can train your mind to respond faster. The goal is not to make you talk more. The goal is to help you think clearly enough that your words come out with confidence, accuracy, and purpose. Stay with this audiobook, because by the end, you will not just speak differently, you will think differently before you speak. Chapter 1. Slow down your mind before you speak. Your ability to speak well begins before your first word leaves your mouth. A strong speaker is not simply someone who knows many words or talks with confidence. A strong speaker knows how to create a clear thought before giving an answer. The quality of your speech often depends on the quality of the few seconds you give yourself before speaking. Most people lose control of conversations because they answer too quickly. Someone asks a difficult question and they feel pressure to respond immediately. Their mind searches for an answer while their mouth is already moving. The result is often a weak explanation, an unnecessary word, or a sentence they wish they could take back. The problem is not always a lack of intelligence. The problem is that the person never gave their mind enough time to organize what they already knew. There is a small habit that can change the way you communicate every day. Give yourself a short pause before answering. This pause does not make you look slow. It gives your brain a moment to identify what was actually said, decide what matters, and choose the clearest response. In normal conversation, even a brief pause can improve the quality of your answer because you are no longer speaking from the first thought that appears. Watch people during a serious conversation and you will notice something useful. The person who answers every question instantly is not always the person who understands the subject best. Sometimes the person who takes 2 or 3 seconds is processing more carefully. They are checking the meaning of the question. They are selecting useful information. They are removing unnecessary words. This is a practical form of intelligence that can be trained. Start by noticing your own speed. For one day, do not try to change how you speak. Simply observe it. Notice what happens after someone asks you something. Do you answer before they finish speaking? Do you interrupt because you already believe you know what they will say? Do you use words such as actually, basically, honestly, maybe, you know, or I mean while searching for your answer? These small habits reveal how your mind behaves under social pressure. This observation matters because people often try to improve their speaking without understanding what causes their weak responses. They practice difficult words. They memorize impressive sentences. They watch communication videos. Yet they continue to speak too quickly because the real problem is not vocabulary. Their mind has learned to react before it has learned to process. There is another important lesson here. Thinking fast does not mean answering fast. Thinking fast means understanding quickly and choosing accurately. A person can speak slowly and still have a very quick mind. A person can speak rapidly while having very little control over their thoughts. Speed of speech and speed of thinking are two different skills. Confusing them causes many people to become nervous speakers. A useful daily exercise is called the 3-second reset. Someone asks you a question. You take one quiet breath. You look at the person naturally. You identify the main point of the question. Then you answer only that point. This takes very little time, but it changes the entire structure of your response. You stop reacting to the pressure of the moment and start responding to the actual situation. Practice this during ordinary conversations first. Do not wait for an important meeting. Use it at breakfast. Use it with a friend. Use it while speaking with a coworker. Use it during a phone call. The goal is not to sound calculated. The goal is to make clear thinking a normal part of your communication. Your first improvement may feel uncomfortable. You may notice silence where you normally fill every second with words. That silence is useful. Many people are afraid of silence because they believe it makes them appear uncertain. In reality, a short natural pause can make your response sound more deliberate. It can also prevent you from saying something that does not represent what you actually believe. There is a simple test you can use. Before answering, silently ask yourself one thing. What is this person really asking me? This question forces your attention toward meaning instead of pressure. A person may ask you a long question, but only need one specific piece of information. Another person may ask something simple while actually expressing concern. Your job is not merely to hear the words. Your job is to understand the purpose behind them. Good communication starts with accurate listening. You cannot give a strong answer to a question you have misunderstood. This is why slowing down your mind is closely connected to listening carefully. Your ears receive the words. Your attention identifies the meaning. Your judgment decides what deserves a response. Your language then delivers that response. Try a practical exercise today. During your next conversation, do not prepare your answer while the other person is talking. Give them your full attention until they finish their main point. You may discover that you were previously preparing an answer to something they never actually asked. This happens often because people listen through their own assumptions instead of listening to understand. There is another reason people speak too quickly. They want approval. They want to appear intelligent. They want to prove that they understand. They fear that a pause will make them look weak. So they rush to demonstrate knowledge. This creates unnecessary pressure because every sentence becomes a performance. Once you stop trying to prove your intelligence, your mind has more space to use it. Real confidence changes the way you handle a pause. You do not need to show everyone how quickly you can answer. You need to show that you can handle the moment without losing control. A calm response can communicate more confidence than a fast response. This is especially important during disagreement, criticism, interviews, negotiations, and serious personal conversations. Consider a common workplace situation. Your manager asks why a task was not completed on time. A rushed answer may begin with excuses. You may mention several unrelated problems. You may blame another person before understanding what the manager wants to know. A slower mind handles the same moment differently. You identify the question. You separate facts from explanations. You accept the part that belongs to you. Then you give a direct answer and explain what you will do next. That response is powerful because it is organized. You do not need advanced language. You need accurate thinking. A simple sentence such as, "I underestimated the time needed and I should have raised the issue earlier," can be stronger than a long explanation filled with excuses. Clear speech often comes from honest thinking rather than impressive vocabulary. You can train this skill by creating a small structure for difficult answers. First, identify the fact, then identify the reason, then identify the next action. This gives your mind a simple path to follow. You are not memorizing a speech. You are giving your thinking a basic order. With practice, this structure becomes easier to use under pressure. The same principle works in personal conversations. Someone tells you that they are disappointed with you. Your first reaction may be to defend yourself. You may immediately explain your intention. But intention is not always the first thing the other person needs. A short pause allows you to hear their experience before defending your own. You might respond by saying, "I understand why that upset you. Let me hear what bothered you most." That sentence creates room for understanding. This does not mean agreeing with everything people say. It means giving yourself enough control to understand before reacting. There is a major difference between being passive and being composed. A passive person avoids responding. A composed person chooses the right response after understanding the situation. Your emotions also affect how quickly your mind speaks. Anger creates urgency. Fear creates urgency. Embarrassment creates urgency. Excitement can create urgency too. In each case, your body may push you toward immediate speech. Your heart beats faster. Your breathing changes. Your face becomes warmer. Your attention becomes narrow. You may feel that you must say something right now. This is the exact moment where a trained pause becomes valuable. Take one breath before answering. Relax your jaw. Lower your shoulders. Let the other person finish. Then speak. These physical actions may look small, but they help interrupt the automatic reaction that often produces poor communication. You should also learn to separate facts from interpretations. This is one of the most useful thinking skills for better speech. Suppose someone says, "You ignored my message." The fact may be that you did not reply. The interpretation may be that you did not care. Those are different things. If you answer the interpretation instead of the fact, the conversation can become defensive very quickly. A careful speaker identifies the difference before responding. You might say, "I saw the message, but I did not respond that day. I was dealing with something else, and I should have replied." That answer is clear because you separated what happened from what you assume the other person believes about you. This kind of thinking prevents many unnecessary arguments. Practice another exercise called the one-sentence answer. During normal conversations, answer simple questions in one clear sentence before adding more information. Someone asks what you are working on. Give the main answer first. Someone asks what happened. Give the main fact first. Someone asks for your opinion. Give your position first. This teaches your mind to identify the center of an idea. Many people speak for several minutes because they have not decided what they are trying to say. They discover their point while talking. That can be useful in private thinking, but it often creates confusion in public conversation. Training yourself to identify the main point first makes your speech shorter and easier to understand. A useful habit is to finish your sentence mentally before saying it aloud. You do not need to create every word in advance. Simply know the destination of the sentence. Ask yourself what point you want the listener to understand. Then speak. This reduces the number of unnecessary words because your mouth is no longer searching for the purpose of the sentence. You can practice this alone. Take a simple subject such as your workday, a book you read, or something you learned. Give yourself 5 seconds to decide your main point. Then explain it in 30 seconds. Record yourself on your phone. Listen to the recording without judging your voice. Pay attention to your thinking. Did you start clearly? Did you repeat yourself? Did you lose the main point? Did you add information that did not help? This exercise gives you feedback that memory cannot provide. Most people have an inaccurate picture of how they communicate because they hear their own voice differently while speaking. A recording shows you where your speech becomes unclear. It also shows progress over time. You can repeat the exercise every few days and compare your answers. Do not try to remove every pause from your speech. Learn to place pauses where they help the listener. A pause before an important point can give both people time to process. A pause after a question can show that you are taking it seriously. A pause during an emotional conversation can prevent an unnecessary reaction. Silence is not the enemy of good communication. Uncontrolled speech is. There is also a deeper lesson about knowledge. The more you learn about useful subjects, the easier it becomes to think before speaking because your mind has more information to work with. Read carefully. Pay attention to people who explain things well. Learn from real situations. After learning something, explain it in your own words. This last step is important because understanding becomes stronger when you can explain an idea simply. Do not collect information only to sound intelligent. Learn information that helps you make better decisions and communicate useful ideas. Study human behavior. Learn basic financial principles. Understand your work. Learn how people solve problems. Improve your ability to explain cause and effect. The goal is not to know everything. The goal is to have enough understanding to make useful connections during real conversations. Your vocabulary will also improve naturally when your thinking improves. Instead of memorizing difficult words, focus on knowing exactly what you mean. Simple language becomes powerful when the speaker understands the idea deeply. A person who understands a subject can often explain it in ordinary words. A person who does not understand it may hide behind complicated language. This is why speaking like a genius does not mean trying to sound like one. It means learning to think clearly enough that your words become useful. It means knowing when to speak and when to listen. It means choosing accuracy over speed. It means staying steady while other people are emotional. It means giving your mind enough space to produce a better answer. There will be moments when you do not know the answer. Do not rush to hide that fact. A mature speaker can say, "I do not know yet. Let me check that before I answer." This is better than giving a confident answer based on weak information. The ability to admit uncertainty protects your credibility. People learn to trust speakers who do not pretend to know everything. You can also buy yourself time without sounding uncertain. Instead of saying, "I have no idea," you can say, "Let me make sure I understand the question." Then repeat the central part of what you heard. This gives you more time while also confirming that you understood the other person correctly. It is a simple communication skill that can prevent serious mistakes. Use the same approach during arguments. Do not answer the strongest emotion in the room. Answer the actual issue. A person may raise their voice, but volume does not change the facts. A person may accuse you, but an accusation does not automatically become evidence. A person may pressure you to answer immediately, but pressure does not require immediate speech. Give yourself permission to pause. Take a breath. Identify what is true. Decide what matters. Then speak. This sequence is simple enough to practice every day and strong enough to change difficult conversations. Your daily training can be very practical. In the morning, choose one communication skill to watch during the day. Today, it can be pausing before answers. Tomorrow, it can be listening without interrupting. The next day, it can be giving the main point first. Focus on one behavior at a time, because clear practice is easier to measure than a vague goal to become a better speaker. At night, review 3 conversations. Ask yourself where you spoke too quickly. Ask where you could have listened longer. Ask whether your answer addressed the real question. Do not attack yourself during this review. You are collecting information. The purpose is to notice patterns so you can make a better choice the next day. You may discover that certain people make you rush. You may speak too quickly around someone you respect. You may become defensive around someone who criticizes you. You may lose clarity during meetings because you are afraid of looking unprepared. These patterns are valuable because they show you where your communication needs training. Once you know the trigger, prepare for it. Before a meeting, remind yourself that you do not need to answer every question instantly. Before a difficult conversation, decide that you will listen completely before responding. Before an interview, practice taking a short pause after each question. Preparation reduces pressure because your mind already knows what behavior you want to follow. There is a point where this practice begins to change more than your speech. It changes your decisions. A person who learns to pause before speaking often becomes better at pausing before reacting. That skill can influence spending, conflict, work decisions, relationships, and personal habits. You begin to create space between an event and your response. That space gives you control. Your goal is not to become a person who never makes a poor statement. Everyone speaks imperfectly. Your goal is to become someone who notices the moment before speaking and uses it wisely. That moment may last only a few seconds, but those seconds can change the quality of an entire conversation. Start today with one simple rule. Do not rush to fill silence. Let a question finish. Take one breath. Find the main point, then speak clearly. Practice this in ordinary conversations until it feels natural. Your mind becomes faster, not by forcing it to race, but by training it to process information with greater order and control. The person sitting across from you does not need every thought inside your head. They need the thought that helps them understand the situation. Give them that thought clearly. Give yourself enough time to choose it. As you practice, your words will become calmer, your answers will become sharper, and your conversations will become more useful. The change begins in the small pause before you speak. Chapter 2. Learn to think clearly under pressure. Pressure changes the way people think, speak, and make decisions. A person can understand something perfectly during a quiet afternoon and still struggle to explain it during a tense meeting. The problem is often not intelligence. The problem is that pressure reduces attention and makes the mind focus on the threat instead of the task. Learning to think clearly under pressure means training yourself to stay mentally organized while your body feels stress. A useful first lesson is to recognize what pressure does to your attention. Your breathing may become faster, your muscles may tighten, you may notice the other person's facial expression more than their actual words. You may start thinking about how you look instead of what needs to be said. This shift happens quickly. The first skill is noticing it before it controls your response. Start using a simple physical reset during stressful conversations. Put both feet firmly on the floor. Relax your shoulders. Take one slow breath and look directly at the person. Do not force yourself to become perfectly calm. Your goal is only to reduce unnecessary physical tension so your attention can return to the problem. A small physical adjustment can make it easier to organize your thoughts. Pressure becomes harder to manage when you try to solve everything at once. Your mind may consider the question, your answer, the other person's reaction, your reputation, the possible consequences, and what you should say next. That is too much information for one moment. Clear thinking requires reducing the number of things you are processing at the same time. Use one question to bring your attention back to the present situation. Ask yourself what needs to be answered right now, not what happened last month, not what the other person might think tomorrow, not what could go wrong next year. Identify the immediate issue. This gives your mind a specific task instead of allowing pressure to control the entire conversation. Consider an interview. The interviewer asks something unexpected, and you immediately feel your stomach tighten. Your first instinct may be to produce an impressive answer. That pressure can make your response complicated. A better approach is to identify the skill or experience the question is testing. Once you understand the purpose behind the question, you can select an example from your experience and explain it clearly. The answer becomes easier because your mind is solving a specific problem. This principle works in business, relationships, classrooms, and everyday disagreements. Strong thinking under pressure often depends on identifying the real problem before trying to solve it. Many people respond to the emotional surface of a situation while ignoring the practical issue underneath it. You can train yourself to separate those two levels. Suppose a coworker says your work caused a delay. Your emotions may immediately focus on the accusation. You may want to defend yourself. Before speaking, separate the personal statement from the practical issue. The practical question may be whether your part of the work was completed on time. That is something you can examine. Once the facts are clear, you can address responsibility without allowing the emotional tone to decide your response. Another useful skill is breaking large problems into smaller decisions. Pressure makes a situation feel larger than it really is. A customer is angry. A deadline is close. A mistake has been discovered. Instead of asking yourself how you are going to fix everything, identify the next decision that must be made. Then handle that decision. This prevents your attention from being scattered across several problems. You can practice this every day without waiting for a crisis. Take one difficult task and write down the exact problem in one sentence. Then write down what information you need. Then identify the first action that can improve the situation. This exercise trains your brain to move from emotional reaction to practical analysis. There is also a difference between urgency and importance. Under pressure, people often treat everything as urgent. A message arrives and they feel they must answer immediately. Someone becomes upset and they feel they must defend themselves immediately. A problem appears and they feel they must solve every part immediately. Clear thinkers separate what truly requires immediate action from what can wait. Ask yourself what will happen if you wait 10 minutes. Then ask what will happen if you wait 1 hour. This simple test can reveal whether the pressure is real or emotional. Some situations require immediate action. Others only feel urgent because your mind dislikes uncertainty. Learning the difference helps you make better decisions. Your words also become clearer when you stop trying to predict every reaction. Under pressure, people often edit themselves while speaking. They say one sentence and immediately worry about how it sounded. Then they change direction. Then they add another explanation. The listener receives a long response without a clear point. Instead, decide what you believe is true before explaining it. Separate facts from opinions. Separate what you know from what you assume. Separate what you can control from what belongs to another person. These distinctions make difficult conversations much easier because you are no longer mixing different types of information. A practical exercise is to take a stressful event from your day and divide it into 3 parts. Write down what happened. Write down what you believed about what happened. Then write down what you can actually prove. This exercise can reveal how quickly the mind adds meaning to events. It teaches you to examine your own thinking before presenting it to someone else. Clear thinking also requires the courage to slow down your answer when you need more information. A person under pressure often believes that saying something is better than saying nothing. That is not always true. A wrong answer can create more work than a short request for clarification. You can say, "I want to answer that accurately, so I need one detail first." That response shows control. You are not avoiding the question. You are making sure your answer is based on the right information. This is especially useful at work because many communication problems begin with assumptions that nobody checked. Pressure can also make people forget what they already know. You may study for an examination and suddenly struggle to remember a simple answer. You may prepare for a presentation and lose your words once several people look at you. In these situations, trying harder to remember everything at once can make the problem worse. Use retrieval practice before important events. Do not only reread your notes. Close the material and explain the main ideas without looking. Practice answering questions aloud. Ask someone to challenge your explanation. This prepares your mind to retrieve information while experiencing a small amount of pressure. The brain becomes more familiar with the process of producing an answer instead of only recognizing information on a page. You can also create pressure during practice in controlled amounts. Set a timer and explain a topic in 60 seconds. Then explain the same topic in 30 seconds. Then answer 3 unexpected questions about it. The purpose is not to make yourself anxious. The purpose is to train your thinking to remain organized while time and attention are limited. One of the most useful habits is learning to prioritize your first sentence. In a stressful situation, make your opening sentence clear. Tell the person the main fact or main position, then provide the necessary details. This gives your listener something stable to understand while you continue explaining. For example, instead of beginning with a long story about everything that happened, begin with the actual status of the situation. The report is not ready yet, and I will need 2 more hours. Now the other person knows the essential information. You can explain the reason afterward. Clear communication becomes easier because the main point is already established. Do not confuse pressure with importance. Some of the most important decisions in life need careful thought rather than immediate action. A person may pressure you to agree to something. A salesperson may create urgency. A friend may demand an instant answer. A manager may ask you to make a decision before you have enough information. You can remain respectful without surrendering your ability to think. A strong response can be simple. I understand this needs attention, but I need to check the details before I decide. You are not being difficult. You are protecting the quality of your decision. The ability to remain respectful while holding your position is an important part of mature communication. You should also learn your personal pressure signals. Maybe you start talking faster. Maybe you rub your hands. Maybe you stop listening. Maybe you become unusually quiet. Maybe you begin explaining the same point several times. These signals are useful because they can warn you that your thinking is becoming less organized. Create a personal reset routine. Notice the signal. Stop speaking for a moment. Take 1 breath. Identify the actual problem. Choose one fact that matters, then respond. The more often you practice this sequence during small, stressful moments, the easier it becomes during serious situations. Do not wait for a major crisis to develop this ability. Practice it in traffic. Practice it during a disagreement. Practice it when technology stops working. Practice it when someone misunderstands you. Practice it during a busy workday. These ordinary moments give you repeated opportunities to strengthen your mental control. At the end of each day, choose one moment where pressure affected your thinking. Write down what happened and how you reacted. Then write one response you could have given with a clearer mind. Do not judge yourself. Study the event. Your mistakes can become training material when you examine them honestly. Over time, you will notice a valuable change. Pressure will still exist, but it will not automatically decide how you behave. You will recognize the physical signs sooner. You will separate facts from assumptions faster. You will identify the real problem with less confusion. You will become more comfortable asking for information before making a decision. Clear thinking under pressure is not a special talent reserved for naturally confident people. It is a skill built through repeated practice. Each stressful conversation gives you another chance to control your attention, organize information, and choose your response with care. The goal is not to remove pressure from your life. The goal is to become the person who can still think clearly while pressure is present. That ability changes the quality of your speech because your words begin to come from judgment rather than panic. You stop trying to impress people with speed. You focus on accuracy. You stop reacting to every emotion in the room. You focus on the issue that needs to be handled. You stop treating every difficult moment as an emergency. You learn to examine the situation and decide what deserves your attention. The next time pressure enters a conversation, notice the first physical signal. Create a little space. Find the real issue. Separate facts from assumptions. Choose the next useful action. Then speak from that understanding. With enough practice, Your mind becomes steadier under stress, and your ability to communicate remains strong, precisely when clear thinking matters most. Chapter 3. Listen carefully before giving your answer. Good speaking begins with something most people practice far less than talking. It begins with listening well enough to understand what another person actually means. Many weak conversations are not caused by poor vocabulary or a lack of confidence. They fail because the speaker starts preparing an answer before the other person has finished explaining the situation. A person can hear every word and still miss the message. Your ears may receive the sound while your attention is already building a reply. You may be thinking about what you want to say next, how you want to defend yourself, or what answer will make you look intelligent. At that moment, you are no longer listening to understand. You are listening for an opening to speak. Notice what happens during an ordinary conversation. Someone begins explaining a problem and you remember a similar experience. Before they finish, your mind moves toward your own story. You may even interrupt with, "That happened to me too." The intention may be friendly, but the other person can feel that their experience was pushed aside. Good communication requires more than hearing information. It requires giving another person enough attention to finish their thought. One practical rule can change this habit. Do not prepare your response while someone is still explaining. Keep your attention on their words until they reach a natural stopping point. This feels simple, but it requires discipline because the human mind naturally makes predictions. You may believe you already know where the conversation is going. Stay with the speaker instead of completing the sentence in your head. This skill becomes especially important when the subject matters emotionally. A friend may tell you that something you did hurt them. Your mind may immediately search for reasons you were not wrong. You may remember what happened before. You may begin building a defense. But the first job is not to win the discussion. The first job is to understand what the person experienced. A strong listener does not have to agree with every statement. Understanding and agreement are different actions. You can understand someone's position and still disagree with their conclusion. You can recognize their feelings without accepting every accusation. Listening gives you accurate information so that your response is based on the real issue rather than your first emotional reaction. Try a simple exercise during your next conversation. Keep your attention on the person until they finish. Then pause for a moment and identify their main point in your own mind. Ask yourself what they want you to understand. Only after that should you decide whether you need to answer, explain, ask something, or simply acknowledge what they said. This creates another useful habit. Instead of answering every statement immediately, learn to ask a short question that improves your understanding. Questions such as, "What part bothered you most?" or "What happened after that?" can reveal information that your first assumption missed. A good question can often improve a conversation more than a long answer. People also reveal their meaning through details they consider important. Pay attention to what they repeat. Notice where their voice changes. Observe whether they become quiet around a certain subject. Listen for words such as worried, confused, disappointed, frustrated, or unsure. These details can tell you what matters to them, but do not treat every facial expression as proof of a hidden feeling. Use observations as reasons to ask better questions, not as excuses to make assumptions. There is another listening mistake that creates many unnecessary problems. People often listen only for facts that support what they already believe. This is easy to notice during disagreements. One person speaks, and the other waits for a sentence they can challenge. The conversation becomes a competition to find errors rather than an attempt to understand the full situation. Train yourself to search for information that could change your opinion. This is a powerful form of mental discipline. Ask yourself what the other person knows that you may not know. Ask what detail you might be missing. Ask whether your first interpretation is based on evidence or habit. These questions make your thinking more flexible and improve the quality of your answers. Imagine a colleague tells you that your recent work has created problems for the team. Your first response may be to explain why you were given limited time. That information may be true, but it may not answer the concern. Listen to the examples first. Find out which part caused difficulty. Then, explain the circumstances. Your response becomes stronger because you are addressing a specific issue rather than defending yourself against a general feeling. Good listening also requires resisting the urge to fix everything. Someone may share a problem because they want advice. They may also want to be understood before hearing advice. If you immediately give instructions, you may solve a problem they were not asking you to solve. Ask what they need. A short question can prevent a long and unwanted speech. This principle is useful at home. A family member says they had a difficult day. You could immediately tell them what they should have done differently. That may make them feel more alone. A better response may be, "What made the day difficult? You have not solved anything yet, but you have created space for the person to explain." Once you understand the situation, useful advice becomes easier to give. Listening can also make you appear more intelligent because it gives you better information. People often assume intelligence is shown through fast answers. In real conversations, accurate understanding is often more valuable. A person who listens carefully can notice details that a fast speaker misses. That person then gives an answer that fits the situation instead of producing a general response. Use names and specific details naturally. If someone explains that a customer complained about delivery time, remember that detail when responding. Instead of saying, "That sounds difficult," you can say, "The delivery delay seems to be the main problem." Specific language shows that you were actually present in the conversation. Another useful practice is reflecting the main point back to the speaker. You do not need to repeat their entire statement. Say something like, "So your main concern is the deadline, not the quality of the work." Then allow them to correct you if necessary. This method can prevent misunderstandings before they become arguments. Be careful not to turn this into a mechanical technique. People do not want to feel that they are being processed through a communication system. Speak naturally. Your purpose is not to perform listening. Your purpose is to understand another human being accurately enough to respond with respect and usefulness. Listening also becomes harder when you strongly dislike what you hear. That is where the skill becomes most valuable. A person who agrees with you is easy to listen to. A person who challenges your beliefs requires more control. Do not punish yourself for feeling defensive. Notice the feeling and continue paying attention. The emotion can exist without controlling your behavior. You can train this during small disagreements. The next time someone disagrees with you, do not immediately search for a counter-argument. Ask them to explain their reasoning. Then listen for the strongest part of their position. You may still disagree after hearing it, but you will have a better understanding of why they think differently. This habit improves your ability to think before speaking because listening supplies better raw information for your mind. A poor listener often answers an imagined version of the conversation. A careful listener responds to what was actually said. That difference can completely change the result. There is also a practical benefit in professional life. People remember who pays attention. A manager notices an employee who understands instructions without needing every detail repeated. A customer notices when someone remembers their concern. A friend notices when you recall something they told you weeks earlier. Attention communicates respect without requiring a dramatic statement. You can strengthen your listening through a daily 5-minute exercise. Choose one conversation and make it your listening practice. Do not interrupt. Do not check your phone. Do not plan your response while the person speaks. Notice the main point, the supporting details, and the question or need behind the conversation. Afterward, write down what you remember. This reveals how much information your attention actually captured. Then improve one part of the process. Maybe you missed details because your phone was nearby. Maybe you became distracted because you were thinking about your own experience. Maybe you interrupted because you feared forgetting your thought. Identify the problem and adjust your behavior during the next conversation. You can solve the fear of forgetting your thought without interrupting. Keep a small note nearby during important meetings. Write 1 or 2 words that remind you of your point. You do not need to record every thought. A short keyword can preserve the idea while allowing you to keep listening. This is especially useful during long discussions. Remember that good listening does not require constant eye contact or exaggerated reactions. Natural attention is enough. Look at the person when appropriate. Show that you are following the conversation. Give them time to finish. Avoid checking your phone or preparing unrelated tasks. Simple behavior can communicate genuine attention more effectively than forced gestures. The deeper lesson is that speaking well is partly an information problem. Your answer can only be as accurate as your understanding of the situation. Listening increases the information available to you. Careful questions improve that information. Reflection checks whether you understood it correctly. Only then should your judgment shape the response. This changes the way you approach conversations. You stop seeing every interaction as your opportunity to speak. You start seeing it as an opportunity to understand. That shift can improve your relationships because people feel heard. It can improve your work because instructions become clearer. It can improve your decisions because you gather more relevant information before acting. At the end of today, remember one practical standard. Do not measure a conversation by how impressive your answer sounded. Measure it by how accurately you understood the person before answering. The person who learns to listen deeply gains information that a rushed speaker never receives. That information gives you better judgment, better questions, and better words. Your next conversation is a chance to practice. Let the other person finish. Stay with the meaning instead of preparing your reply. Ask for the missing detail. Separate understanding from agreement. Then answer the person who is actually speaking rather than the version of them your mind created. As this becomes a daily habit, your responses become more precise because your thinking is built on what you truly heard. Chapter 4. Ask better questions during every conversation. The quality of your questions often determines the quality of your conversations. People who speak intelligently are not always the people who have the most information. They are often the people who know how to uncover the right information. A well-chosen question can reveal a problem that was hidden behind a vague statement, expose an assumption that was never examined, or help another person explain an idea they could not express clearly. Most people ask questions simply to keep a conversation moving. They say, "How are you?" and receive "Fine." Then they move to another subject. They ask, "Did you finish the work?" and receive "Yes." The exchange produces information, but it does not create much understanding. Better questions go deeper without becoming complicated. They help you discover what happened, why it matters, what is missing, and what should happen next. Start by noticing the difference between a question that closes a conversation and one that opens it. A question such as, "Was the meeting good?" can often produce a short answer. A question such as, "What was the most useful part of the meeting?" gives the person something specific to explain. The second question does not require difficult language. It simply gives the other person a clearer path for answering. This is one reason intelligent communication is not about using impressive words. It is about directing attention toward useful information. A good question tells the other person what kind of information you need. It reduces confusion for both people. Once you learn this, you can improve conversations without speaking more. You can become more useful by becoming more precise. There are 5 basic things worth finding in many conversations. You want to know what happened, what caused it, what matters most, what is still unknown, and what needs to happen next. You do not need to ask all 5 every time. The situation determines which one matters. The skill is recognizing what information is missing. Consider a friend who says, "My job is becoming impossible." A weak response might be, "Why?" That question is not wrong, but it is broad. The person may not know where to begin. A more useful question could be, "What part of the job has become hardest recently?" Now the person has a specific area to discuss. Their answer may reveal workload, conflict, unclear instructions, or a personal problem. Your next response can then be based on something real. Questions become especially valuable when people use general words. Someone may say, "Everyone is against me." Do not immediately accept or reject that statement. Ask, "Who has made you feel that way?" This moves the conversation from a broad conclusion toward specific events. Specific events can be examined. General statements often hide several different problems. The same method works in your own thinking. Whenever you hear yourself say, "always," "never," "everyone," or "nobody," stop and ask what specific evidence supports the statement. This small habit can protect you from emotional thinking. A person may say, "I always fail at this," while actually referring to 2 recent mistakes. The question changes the size of the problem. Another powerful question is, "What do you mean by that?" Use it respectfully when a statement is unclear. People often use the same word with different meanings. Someone may say they want more freedom. You may think they mean fewer working hours. They may mean greater control over decisions. Without clarification, you can spend an entire conversation solving the wrong problem. Good questions also prevent unnecessary arguments. Imagine someone tells you, "You do not care about this team." Your first reaction may be to defend yourself. Instead, ask, "What did I do that gave you that impression?" Now you are asking for observable information. The person may mention a missed deadline or a meeting you skipped. You can address the actual behavior instead of fighting over a personal judgment. This is a major communication skill because people often argue about labels. They call someone lazy, rude, selfish, careless, or disrespectful. Labels create emotional reactions, but they do not always explain the behavior that caused the problem. Ask for the specific action. Once the action is clear, the conversation becomes easier to handle. You should also learn to ask questions that separate facts from guesses. Suppose a coworker says, "The client hates our proposal." Ask, "What did the client actually say?" That question may reveal that the client did not reject the proposal at all. Perhaps they requested changes. The first statement was an interpretation. Your question uncovered the evidence. This habit is extremely useful in meetings. Instead of accepting a statement such as, "Customers do not want this," ask, "What feedback have we received from customers?" The answer may reveal that only a few people were contacted. The problem may not be the product. The problem may be that the information is incomplete. A precise question can expose this difference before a poor decision is made. Questions can also help you learn faster. When someone teaches you something, do not only ask for more information. Ask about the reason behind the method. Ask what mistake beginners usually make. Ask how the principle works in real life. Ask what evidence supports the idea. These questions turn a simple conversation into a practical lesson. For example, if an experienced worker shows you how to handle a difficult customer, do not stop after learning the steps. Ask, "What usually makes this situation worse?" That question may give you information that is not written in any instruction manual. Experienced people often carry useful knowledge about mistakes because they have seen the consequences repeatedly. You can use this approach with people who have more experience than you. Instead of trying to impress them, become curious. Ask what they learned the hard way. Ask what they would do differently now. Ask which early mistake cost them the most time. Their answers may provide practical knowledge that would otherwise take years to discover. There is also a question that improves decision-making. Ask, "What would have to be true for this plan to work?" This forces you to identify assumptions. A plan may depend on enough money, enough time, reliable information, or cooperation from other people. Once those conditions are visible, you can test them instead of simply hoping they will work. Another useful question is, what are we not considering? This should not be used to sound clever. Use it when a decision has important consequences. It encourages people to look beyond the obvious information. Sometimes the missing issue is cost. Sometimes it is timing. Sometimes it is the effect on another person. Sometimes nobody has checked whether the basic assumption is correct. Your questions should also match the emotional state of the person you are speaking with. A person who is upset may not respond well to a long series of questions. Start with one simple question. Give them room to answer. Listen carefully to the response. Then decide whether another question is necessary. Good questioning is not interrogation, it is guided attention. Avoid asking questions simply because you want to control the conversation. People can feel the difference between genuine curiosity and a hidden attempt to trap them. Your purpose should be understanding. Ask for information that helps both sides see the situation more clearly. There is a practical exercise you can use every day. Choose one conversation, and make a rule that you will ask 3 useful questions before giving your main opinion. The questions should not be random. Each one should uncover something you do not already know. You may discover that your original opinion changes after receiving better information. This exercise teaches an important lesson about confidence. You do not need to have an immediate opinion about everything. You can be confident enough to investigate first. Some people speak quickly because they are uncomfortable saying, "I need to understand this better." A thoughtful person can admit that more information is needed without feeling embarrassed. Questions are also powerful during negotiations. Instead of immediately rejecting a proposal, ask what problem the proposal is trying to solve. Instead of arguing about price, ask what is included. Instead of saying that a deadline is impossible, ask which part of the project must be completed first. These questions move the discussion toward the actual interests of the people involved. In personal relationships, questions can create closeness because they show attention. A person may tell you about a difficult day. Rather than immediately sharing your own experience, ask, "What part of today stayed on your mind?" That question gives them permission to explain what mattered most. You may learn something about them that a casual conversation would never reveal. Be careful with questions that sound like accusations. "Why did you do that?" can easily sound hostile. A calmer version may be, "What led you to make that decision?" Both questions seek information, but the second one creates less pressure. The wording matters because people respond not only to the information you request, but also to the attitude behind the request. Another valuable habit is learning to ask one question at a time. Several questions together can overwhelm the listener. You may ask what happened, who was involved, why it happened, and what they plan to do next in one sentence. The person may answer only one part. Keep the conversation organized. Ask the most important question first. Do not fear simple questions. Some of the best questions are short. What changed? What matters most? What caused it? What do you need? What happens next? These questions work because they point directly toward useful information. Complexity does not make a question intelligent. Your ability to ask better questions will also improve your ability to think before speaking. Every good question forces you to identify what you do not understand. That awareness creates mental discipline. Instead of pretending to know, you investigate. Instead of guessing, you clarify. Instead of reacting to a broad statement, you search for specific information. Make this part of your daily routine. During one conversation today, replace one quick opinion with a useful question. During your next meeting, ask what evidence supports an important claim. During a personal conversation, ask for the specific event behind a general complaint. During your own planning, ask what assumption could cause the plan to fail. Over time, you will notice that conversations become more informative. People explain more. Problems become more specific. Decisions become easier to evaluate. You also become less dependent on quick reactions because you have learned how to gather information before forming your response. A person who asks better questions does not need to dominate a conversation. They help the conversation become clearer. They give people a chance to explain what they really mean. They identify missing information. They uncover assumptions. They make room for facts before opinions. These are practical signs of strong thinking. Use your next conversation as training. Listen for the point that is unclear. Find the fact that is missing. Ask one precise question, then stay quiet long enough to hear the complete answer. Your intelligence will not be measured by how many words you can produce. It will also be seen in the quality of the information you know how to uncover. Chapter 5. Stop rushing and choose your words. Words can solve a problem or create one within seconds. The difference is often not the size of your vocabulary, but the care you use before speaking. A rushed sentence can sound careless even when your intention is good. A carefully chosen sentence can make a difficult situation easier without using complicated language. Many people speak quickly because they feel pressure to keep the conversation moving. They worry that silence will make them look uncertain. They fear forgetting their thought. They want to prove that they understand. They may even believe that fast speech makes them sound confident. In reality, speed can reduce accuracy because the mouth can move faster than judgment. Your words carry information, but they also carry attitude. The same message can sound respectful or insulting depending on how it is expressed. Saying, "You are wrong," creates a different reaction from saying, "I see it differently because of this fact." Both statements communicate disagreement, but one creates resistance while the other leaves room for discussion. This is why word choice deserves deliberate practice. You do not need to make every sentence perfect. You need to become aware of the effect your words can have. Before speaking, identify the purpose of your sentence. Are you trying to explain something, correct a mistake, express concern, ask for help, set a boundary, or make a decision? Knowing the purpose helps you remove words that do not serve it. A useful daily exercise is to replace emotional labels with specific descriptions. Instead of calling someone lazy, describe the behavior. Instead of saying a project is terrible, explain which part is causing the problem. Instead of saying someone never listens, identify the conversation where you felt ignored. Specific language gives people something they can understand and respond to. This matters because labels attack identity while descriptions address behavior. A person who hears, "You are careless," may immediately defend themselves. A person who hears, "The figures were not checked before the report was sent," can examine the action. The second statement creates a practical problem that can be corrected. Choose facts before judgments. Suppose your friend arrives 30 minutes late. You may feel disrespected, but the fact is that they arrived 30 minutes after the agreed time. You can say, "I was waiting for 30 minutes and I needed you to let me know." That sentence explains the situation and your need without turning the moment into a personal attack. Your communication becomes stronger when you learn to separate what happened from what you felt about it. Feelings are important, but they are not always complete explanations. Saying, "I felt ignored during the meeting," is more useful than saying, "You ignored me." The first statement describes your experience. The second claims to know the other person's intention. This distinction can protect relationships. People often react badly when they feel their intentions have been judged. You may know how their action affected you, but you may not know why they chose it. Speak about what you know. Ask about what you do not know. This keeps the conversation grounded. Another important skill is removing unnecessary words. People often weaken a strong idea by surrounding it with too many explanations. They say, "I just kind of wanted to maybe ask if you could possibly take a look at this." The listener has to work to find the actual request. A clearer version is, "Could you review this today?" Simple language saves attention. Practice this with your everyday requests. Before asking for something, remove words that do not change the meaning. Before explaining a problem, identify the main fact. Before giving an opinion, state the opinion clearly. Then add only the information needed to support it. Do not confuse short speech with intelligent speech. Some ideas require explanation. The goal is not to make everything brief. The goal is to make every part useful. If a detail helps the listener understand the decision, keep it. If it only shows how much you know, remove it. This becomes especially important during conflict. Strong emotions create a desire to say everything at once. You remember old mistakes. You bring up previous arguments. You mention things that have nothing to do with the current problem. The conversation becomes larger than the original issue. A disciplined speaker stays with the subject that needs to be handled. If the disagreement is about a missed responsibility, discuss that responsibility. Do not add 5 unrelated complaints. This gives both people a realistic chance to solve the problem instead of defending themselves against a long list of accusations. There is also value in replacing absolute words with accurate ones. Words such as always and never often make conversations worse because they are rarely completely true. You never help me can be challenged with one example. You did not help me with this task today is specific. Accuracy makes your point harder to dismiss. You should also be careful with words spoken during anger. Anger can make a temporary feeling sound like a permanent decision. A person says, "I am done with you," when they actually mean, "I am extremely upset about what happened." Those statements have very different consequences. Learn to describe the current issue instead of making permanent declarations during temporary emotions. One practical method is to delay important statements until your body settles. You do not need to disappear from the conversation. You can say, "I am too upset to explain this properly right now. I need a little time." Then return to the discussion after you can organize your thoughts. This is not avoidance. It is responsible communication. Your tone also matters. People often focus so much on the words that they forget delivery. A correct sentence spoken with contempt can create more damage than an imperfect sentence spoken with respect. Pay attention to your volume, speed, facial expression, and timing. The listener receives the whole message, not just the dictionary meaning of your words. You can practice this by recording yourself explaining an ordinary subject for 1 minute. Listen again and notice your speed. Do you rush through important points? Do you become louder when discussing something you care about? Do you use filler words because you are searching for the next sentence? Do you repeat a point because you are unsure whether the listener understood it? Do not try to fix everything at once. Choose one issue. If you speak too quickly, focus on reducing your speed. If you use too many filler words, allow yourself a moment to think instead. If you become harsh during disagreement, focus on describing behavior instead of judging character. Small corrections become lasting skills when practiced repeatedly. There is another useful technique called the replacement sentence. Before an important conversation, predict one sentence you might say emotionally. Then create a more accurate version. Instead of, "You do not respect my time," prepare, "I need you to tell me earlier when the schedule changes." Instead of, "This makes no sense," prepare, "I do not understand how this decision was reached." Instead of, "You are making everything harder," prepare, "This change is creating a problem with the current schedule." This exercise gives your mind better language before emotion becomes strong. You are not memorizing a script. You are preparing yourself to describe the situation accurately. That preparation can prevent a careless sentence from becoming the part of the conversation everyone remembers. Think about how often people remember one sentence for years. A careless insult may last longer than the argument itself. A thoughtful apology may repair something that seemed impossible to repair. Words have consequences because people attach meaning and memory to them. This is why choosing language carefully is not about sounding polished. It is about taking responsibility for the effect of your communication. You should also learn to say less when less is enough. Not every criticism deserves a response. Not every opinion needs correction. Not every disagreement requires a long explanation. Sometimes the most intelligent response is a simple statement of your position followed by silence. Speaking because you have something useful to add is different from speaking because silence makes you uncomfortable. This becomes powerful in professional settings. A meeting can become inefficient because people repeat the same point in different words. Learn to state your view once with clear reasoning, then allow other people to respond. You do not need to keep talking to protect your idea. Good reasoning can stand without constant repetition. Use the same discipline online. Messages are easy to send and difficult to take back. Before sending an angry text or comment, read it once, as though you were the other person. Look for accusations, unnecessary insults, and statements that could be misunderstood. Then remove anything that does not help your purpose. A few seconds of review can prevent a long problem. Your goal is not to become overly cautious or afraid of speaking. You should speak openly. You should express disagreement. You should ask for what you need. You should defend yourself when necessary. The difference is that you learn to do these things with language that is accurate, controlled, and useful. Every day gives you opportunities to practice. Choose one conversation where you will speak more slowly. Choose one moment where you will replace a judgment with a fact. Choose one request that you will make in a direct sentence. At night, remember which choice improved the conversation. This turns communication into a daily skill rather than an idea you admire. The person who chooses words carefully gains an advantage that has nothing to do with sounding sophisticated. Their meaning becomes easier to understand. Their emotions have less control over their statements. Their disagreements become more productive. Their requests become clearer. Their relationships have fewer unnecessary conflicts caused by careless language. Your words should represent what you actually mean. Give yourself enough time to choose them. Remove the sentence that only expresses anger. Keep the sentence that explains the issue. Replace the accusation with the fact. Replace the vague complaint with the specific behavior. Replace unnecessary complexity with clear language. You do not need thousands of impressive words to communicate like an intelligent person. You need the discipline to choose the right words for the moment. That discipline grows every time you slow your speech, examine your intention, and decide that accuracy matters more than speed. Chapter 6. Stay calm when someone challenges you. Being challenged is one of the clearest tests of how well you control your thinking. It is easy to sound intelligent while everyone agrees with you. The real test begins when someone questions your decision, rejects your opinion, points out your mistake, or speaks to you with strong emotion. In that moment, your goal is not to win the exchange as quickly as possible. Your goal is to understand the challenge, examine the facts, and respond without losing control of yourself. A challenge can trigger a very fast emotional reaction. Your face may become warm, your heart may beat harder, your voice may become louder. You may feel an immediate need to defend yourself. These reactions are normal, but they can interfere with careful thinking. The first practical skill is recognizing the difference between feeling attacked and actually being attacked. Someone disagreeing with your idea does not automatically mean they are attacking your character. This distinction can change the way you handle conversations. A coworker may say, "I do not think this plan will work." That statement is about a plan. It is not necessarily a judgment about your intelligence, yet many people hear disagreement as personal rejection. They stop examining the idea and start defending themselves. Once that happens, the original problem becomes secondary. Train yourself to separate your identity from your opinion. You are allowed to change your mind without becoming a different person. You are allowed to discover that another person has better information. You are allowed to admit that you made an error. This flexibility is a sign of strong thinking, because your purpose is to reach the most accurate position rather than protect an old one. A useful response to a challenge is to ask for the reason behind it. Say, "What makes you see it that way?" Then listen carefully. You are not surrendering your position, you are collecting information. The answer may reveal evidence you had not considered, or it may reveal that the other person misunderstood something. Either way, you gain something useful by understanding their reasoning before responding. Do not confuse calmness with weakness. A calm person can disagree firmly. Calmness means your emotions are not choosing your words for you. You can say, "I disagree with that point," without insulting the person. You can say, "I do not think the evidence supports that conclusion," without raising your voice. Control allows you to be firm without becoming aggressive. There is a practical reason this matters. People often remember how a person behaves during disagreement more than what that person said during easy conversations. Your response under pressure gives others information about your reliability. A person who becomes hostile whenever challenged becomes difficult to trust with serious decisions. A person who can examine criticism without becoming defensive is easier to work with. Start noticing the moment your body prepares for an argument. Maybe your shoulders rise. Maybe you begin speaking faster. Maybe you feel the urge to interrupt. Treat that physical reaction as information. Do not wait until you have already said something harmful. Lower your voice slightly. Relax your hands. Give the other person enough time to complete the point. Your physical behavior can help you regain mental control. One of the most useful questions during disagreement is, "What part of this do I need to examine?" This question prevents you from treating the entire challenge as either completely right or completely wrong. Perhaps the person is wrong about the reason, but correct about the result. Perhaps their tone is poor, but their information is useful. Perhaps they misunderstood your intention, but noticed a real problem in your behavior. Learn to separate the message from the delivery. Someone can communicate a useful point in an unpleasant way. You do not have to copy their tone. Take the information that deserves attention and leave the unnecessary hostility behind. This requires discipline because the mind naturally focuses on the emotional part of a message. Consider a meeting where someone says, "This report is full of mistakes. I do not know how you expected anyone to approve it." The delivery is harsh. Your first impulse may be to defend your effort. Instead, look at the report. Are there mistakes? If there are, identify them. If there are not, explain the evidence calmly. You do not improve the situation by arguing about the person's attitude before examining the work. This approach can protect you from two opposite errors. The first is defensive rejection, where you dismiss useful criticism because you dislike how it was delivered. The second is blind acceptance, where you believe every criticism simply because it was delivered confidently. Strong thinking requires examining the content independently. You should also learn the difference between a challenge and a provocation. A challenge asks you to explain or defend an idea. A provocation tries to pull you into an emotional reaction. Not every statement deserves the same level of attention. Someone may deliberately use insulting words because they want you to lose control. You do not have to provide the reaction they are seeking. A simple response can be enough. I am willing to discuss the issue, but I will not continue if we are insulting each other. This establishes a boundary without creating another attack. You are not avoiding disagreement. You are defining the conditions under which productive communication can happen. Another important skill is refusing to answer immediately when the challenge involves a complicated issue. You can say, "There are several parts to that. Let me address them one at a time." Then take the strongest point first. This prevents you from responding to 5 claims at once and losing track of the discussion. You can also ask the other person to identify the specific issue. Which part do you believe is incorrect? This question forces a broad criticism into something concrete. Once the claim is specific, you can examine it. Clear discussion depends on specific claims because vague accusations are difficult to solve. Practice this skill with people you trust. Ask a friend to disagree with one of your opinions and explain why. Your job is not to convince them. Your job is to ask questions, listen, and identify the strongest part of their argument. This exercise teaches your mind that disagreement does not automatically require defense. You can make the exercise harder by choosing a subject you care about deeply. That is where you will notice your strongest emotional reactions. Pay attention to the exact moment you want to interrupt. Notice the thought that appears before the emotion. It may be, "They do not understand." It may be, "I need to prove this." Once you recognize that pattern, you can choose a different response. Another useful practice is steelman thinking. Before rejecting an opposing view, explain the strongest reasonable version of it in your own words. Do not create a weak version that is easy to attack. Ask yourself what a thoughtful person could believe based on the information they have. This exercise improves judgment because it forces you to consider evidence outside your preferred position. You do not need to agree with the strongest version. You only need to understand it accurately. After that, explain where you disagree and why. This creates a much stronger conversation than attacking a distorted version of the other person's argument. This skill is valuable in personal relationships too. A partner, family member, or friend may challenge something you did. Instead of saying, "You always criticize me," focus on the specific event. Ask what they wanted you to do differently. Their answer may reveal a need you did not notice. You can then decide whether the request is reasonable. Do not use calmness as an excuse to suppress every emotion. You can acknowledge that something hurt you. You can say that you are angry. You can express disappointment. The important part is deciding how to communicate those feelings. Emotional honesty is useful when it describes your experience without turning the other person into an enemy. For example, "I am frustrated because the decision was made without asking me," is different from "You people never respect me." The first sentence identifies the emotion and the event. The second creates a broad accusation. Specific language gives the other person something they can respond to. Your ability to stay calm also improves with preparation. Before an important meeting, identify the 3 strongest questions someone could ask about your proposal. Prepare the facts that support your position. Identify one weakness in your own plan. Decide what information would make you change your mind. This preparation reduces fear because you are no longer hoping that nobody will challenge you. Knowing your weakness is especially valuable. A plan becomes easier to defend honestly when you already understand where it could fail. You can say, "The main risk is the timeline, and here is how I plan to manage it." This sounds more credible than pretending that your idea has no problems. Another useful habit is learning to say, "You may be right about that part." Many people avoid these words because they believe an admission will weaken their position. In reality, acknowledging a valid point can strengthen your credibility. It shows that your goal is accuracy rather than total victory. You should also know when a conversation has stopped being productive. Repeating the same arguments will not create new information. At that point, you may need to pause the discussion. Say, "We are repeating the same points, so I think we should step back and look at the facts before continuing." A pause can protect both people from saying things that create unnecessary damage. Train yourself to review challenging conversations afterward. Do not focus only on whether you won. Ask whether you understood the other position. Ask whether you protected your main point. Ask whether your tone helped or harmed the discussion. Ask whether you learned something that should change your thinking. These questions turn conflict into practical training. You will also discover that some challenges expose weaknesses you genuinely need to improve. That can be uncomfortable. Use the discomfort as information. If several people independently point out the same communication problem, examine it seriously. You do not need to accept every criticism, but repeated feedback deserves attention. A mature speaker does not need everyone to approve of every statement. The purpose of communication is not constant approval. Sometimes the correct answer will disappoint someone. Sometimes you will have to say no. Sometimes you will need to admit a mistake. Sometimes you will have to defend a decision. Calmness gives you the ability to do these things without unnecessary hostility. The next time someone challenges you, watch your first reaction. Do not let the first emotion become the first sentence. Separate the person's tone from the information they are giving you. Identify the exact claim. Ask for evidence or clarification. Examine your own position honestly. Then respond to the issue rather than the emotional pressure surrounding it. With practice, disagreement stops feeling like something you must escape or defeat. It becomes information you can examine. You become harder to provoke because you no longer treat every challenge as a threat to your identity. Your thinking becomes more flexible, your speech becomes more controlled, and your decisions become stronger because you can remain present even when another person strongly disagrees with you. Chapter 7. Learn more so you always have something. A person who wants to speak well needs something worth saying. Confidence alone cannot create useful conversation. Strong communication grows from knowledge, experience, curiosity, and the habit of paying attention to the world around you. The more useful information you collect and understand, the easier it becomes to contribute naturally instead of searching desperately for something impressive to say. Many people believe they have a speaking problem when they actually have a learning problem. They enter conversations with very little recent information, few personal experiences to discuss, and limited understanding of subjects outside their routine. Then they feel nervous, because their mind has little material to work with. The solution is not to memorize hundreds of clever sentences. The solution is to become genuinely interested in learning. Start by understanding the difference between collecting information and developing knowledge. You can watch dozens of videos and remember almost nothing. You can read many articles and still struggle to explain the main idea. Knowledge becomes useful when you understand it well enough to connect it with real situations. That means reading, thinking, explaining, applying, and reviewing what you learn. A practical daily habit is to learn one useful idea and explain it in your own words. Choose something related to work, money, communication, health, technology, history, relationships, or decision-making. Study it for a short period. Close the material. Then explain what you learned without looking at your notes. This simple step tests whether the information actually entered your understanding. Do not try to become an expert in everything. Build broad awareness first and deeper knowledge in a few areas that matter to your life. This gives you something useful to discuss across different situations. A person who understands basic economics can contribute to a conversation about business. Someone who studies human behavior can understand workplace conflict better. Someone who reads history can recognize patterns in decisions and leadership. Your conversations become richer when your knowledge connects to experience. Reading about communication is useful, but noticing how people behave during real conversations gives you another level of understanding. Learning about negotiation becomes more valuable after you observe a real negotiation. Studying leadership becomes more practical when you watch how a manager handles pressure. Pay attention during ordinary days. The cashier explaining a problem, a colleague handling an angry customer, a friend making a difficult decision, or a manager changing a plan can all teach you something. You do not need extraordinary experiences to become interesting. You need to notice what ordinary experiences are teaching you. One powerful learning habit is keeping a small idea journal. Each day, record one thing you learned, one thing you noticed, and one question you still have. Do not write long entries. A few sentences are enough. After several weeks, you will have a personal record of ideas that can improve your thinking and give you useful subjects to discuss. Questions are especially important because they keep learning active. When you learn something new, ask why it works. Ask where it fails. Ask what would change the result. Ask how it applies to your life. Ask what a beginner usually misunderstands. These questions prevent passive learning and turn information into understanding. You should also develop the habit of reading beyond your immediate interests. A person who only consumes one type of content gradually develops a narrow view of the world. Read different subjects. Learn about people who lived in different periods. Explore different industries. Study problems that other professions solve. This broadens your mental range and gives you more ways to understand people. The goal is not to mention everything you know. That can make conversation exhausting. Good knowledge gives you options. You choose what is useful for the person and situation in front of you. If someone is discussing a problem at work, you do not need to tell them every fact you learned about business. Share the one idea that can help them understand the issue. This is where knowledge and judgment meet. Intelligent communication is not about displaying information. It is about selecting relevant information. A person can know thousands of facts and still give poor advice because they cannot identify which fact matters. Train yourself to ask one question before sharing information. Does this help the person or the conversation right now? Another useful skill is learning how to tell a short story from your own experience without turning every conversation toward yourself. Suppose you recently learned a lesson from a mistake at work. You can briefly explain what happened, what you changed, and what result followed. Then return attention to the other person. Your experience becomes useful because it adds something relevant rather than competing for attention. You also need to understand that interesting conversation does not require constant entertainment. People often become nervous during quiet moments because they believe they must immediately produce another topic. That pressure can make them speak without purpose. A thoughtful person can allow a conversation to develop naturally. The quality of your contribution matters more than the number of things you say. Build a personal collection of useful subjects. Keep notes about books you enjoyed, lessons from work, interesting discoveries, questions about society, practical skills, and experiences that changed your thinking. Review these notes regularly. You are not preparing conversation scripts. You are developing a richer mind. This habit can also improve your confidence in unfamiliar situations. You may meet someone from another profession or background and have no idea what to discuss. Instead of worrying about appearing interesting, become curious about their world. Ask what they enjoy about their work. Ask what problem they solve most often. Ask what has changed in their field recently. Their answers can create an entire conversation. Your curiosity becomes a social strength because people usually know something you do not. A doctor understands problems you have never studied. A mechanic knows how machines fail. A teacher understands learning difficulties. A business owner understands decisions you may never have faced. A skilled interviewer does not need to know everything. They need to know how to invite useful knowledge from other people. Learn from mistakes as carefully as you learn from success. Ask yourself what a failed decision taught you. Examine why something did not work. Identify the assumption that was wrong. Record the lesson. This gives you practical knowledge that cannot be gained from reading alone. There is also value in reviewing information after a delay. Read something today and revisit the main idea a week later. Try to remember it before checking your notes. This strengthens your ability to retrieve information. The goal is not perfect memory. The goal is being able to access useful ideas when a real situation requires them. You can make this part of your morning routine. Spend 15 minutes learning something useful. During the day, look for one situation where that knowledge applies. At night, explain the lesson in your own words. This creates a complete learning cycle. You receive information, connect it with reality, and strengthen your understanding through explanation. Do not fill your mind with information simply because you fear having nothing to say. That creates another problem. You may become a person who talks constantly but contributes very little. Learn to value relevance. One accurate observation can be more useful than 10 unrelated facts. Choose subjects that improve your ability to understand people and make decisions. Learn how money works. Learn how habits are formed. Learn how businesses operate. Learn how communication fails. Learn how stress affects behavior. Learn how people make decisions. Learn how to evaluate evidence. These subjects give you practical knowledge that can be used across many areas of life. You should also practice explaining difficult ideas in simple language. Take something you learned and explain it as though you were speaking to a friend who has never studied it. Avoid unnecessary technical terms. Use ordinary examples. If you cannot explain the idea simply, that may indicate that you do not understand it deeply enough yet. This exercise improves both knowledge and speech. You learn to organize information before presenting it. You learn which details matter. You learn which words confuse people. You become better at turning complicated subjects into clear conversations. Another powerful habit is learning from people who disagree with you. Read a thoughtful argument from another position. Try to understand the reasoning before deciding whether you accept it. This expands your knowledge because you are exposed to information that your normal environment may not provide. It also makes your thinking less dependent on familiar opinions. Your social confidence grows from this broader mental preparation. You stop entering conversations hoping someone will give you a topic. You carry questions, experiences, observations, and useful ideas with you. You become comfortable discussing unfamiliar subjects because curiosity gives you a way forward. Still, remember one important rule. Never pretend to know something you do not know. Saying, "I have not studied that enough to give you a good answer," is better than creating false confidence. Honest limits protect your credibility and create opportunities to learn. The person who admits a gap in knowledge can fill it. The person who pretends has no reason to investigate. At the end of each week, review what entered your mind. Which ideas were useful? Which information changed your opinion? Which lesson affected a decision? Which subject made you curious enough to learn more? This review helps you identify what deserves deeper attention. Your goal is not to become the person who always has the most to say. Become the person who usually has something useful to contribute. Learn from books. Learn from people. Learn from mistakes. Learn from observation. Learn from experience. Then organize what you learn so that it becomes available when life gives you a reason to use it. A strong speaker is often a strong learner first. Their words have substance because their mind has been trained to notice, understand, connect, and explain. Keep learning every day, not to impress people but to become more capable in real situations. The more clearly you understand the world around you, the easier it becomes to find the right words when the moment asks you to speak. Chapter 8. Speak simply, so people understand you. Clear speech is not about sounding impressive. It is about making your meaning easy to understand. A person can use advanced words and still leave people confused. Another person can use ordinary language and explain a difficult idea so clearly that everyone remembers it. The difference comes from how well the speaker understands the message and how carefully that message is organized. Many people make communication harder than necessary because they try to sound intelligent. They use long sentences, complicated words, and unnecessary details. They believe simple language makes them look less educated. The opposite is often true. Simple speech requires you to know exactly what you mean. You cannot hide a weak idea behind complicated language when every sentence has to be clear. Start with one basic rule. Say the main idea in the simplest, accurate way. Do not begin with background information that the listener does not need. Do not explain every detail before revealing the point. Give people a clear starting place, then add information that helps them understand the subject. Imagine someone asks what happened during a meeting. A confusing answer may begin with every detail from the beginning of the day. A clear answer begins with the result. The team agreed to move the deadline by 2 days. Now the listener knows what happened. You can explain why the decision was made afterward. This structure saves time and reduces confusion. Simple communication also depends on knowing your audience. The same subject may need different explanations for different people. A technical expert may understand specialized terms immediately. A new employee may need ordinary examples. A child may need an even simpler explanation. Intelligent communication means adjusting your language without changing the truth. Before speaking, ask yourself what the other person already knows. This prevents you from giving too much information or too little. If they understand the basics, move forward. If they are unfamiliar with the subject, explain the foundation first. Good speakers do not force every listener to understand information at the same speed. One of the easiest ways to improve clarity is to use concrete words. Instead of saying, "We need to improve our performance," explain what needs to change. "We need to answer customer messages within 1 hour." The second sentence gives the listener something measurable. It removes uncertainty and makes the goal easier to understand. Vague language often sounds professional, but communicates very little. Words such as improve, optimize, address, enhance, handle, and develop can be useful, but they become weak when nothing specific follows them. If you say, "We need to address the issue," explain what action you mean. "We need to call the customer and correct the invoice." Now, the listener knows what to do. Practice replacing general statements with observable actions. Instead of saying, "I want to become healthier," say, "I will walk for 30 minutes after work." Instead of saying, "I need to manage my time better," say, "I will stop checking messages during my first hour of focused work." Specific language turns an idea into something people can understand and act upon. Another common problem is trying to explain several ideas in one sentence. Your mind may see the connection between them, but the listener has to process each point separately. Give important ideas enough space. Complete one thought before moving to another. This makes your speech easier to follow. You can practice this by explaining one topic using 3 short sentences. State the point, give the reason, give the action or example. Suppose you are explaining why a meeting needs to change. You might say, "Our meetings are taking too long. Most of the time is spent discussing issues that do not require the whole team. From next week, we will send those issues separately." The listener receives the problem, the reason, and the solution. This structure works because the mind can process information more easily when the relationship between ideas is clear. You do not need to make every conversation follow a strict formula. You simply need to understand the connection between what you are saying. Another powerful skill is using examples. A difficult idea becomes easier to understand when people can connect it to something familiar. Suppose you are explaining why saving small amounts matters. Instead of giving a complicated financial explanation, show the behavior. Saving a small amount every week creates a habit of keeping money before spending it. The example gives the idea a practical meaning. Do not overload people with examples either. One strong example is usually better than 5 weak ones. Choose an example that closely matches the point you are explaining. If the example creates another explanation that needs to be clarified, it may not be useful. Your sentence length also affects understanding. Long sentences are not automatically bad, but they increase the amount of information the listener must hold at once. During important conversations, shorter sentences can make your meaning easier to follow. Complete one idea, pause naturally, then continue. This is especially helpful during emotional conversations. A person who is upset may not process a long explanation well. Give them the main point first, then provide the necessary details. Do not force someone to search through 10 sentences to discover what you are trying to say. Another useful habit is removing words that do not add meaning. Listen to your own speech for phrases such as basically, actually, kind of, I mean, to be honest, and you know. These words are common in everyday conversation and do not need to disappear completely. The problem begins when they appear because you have not decided what you want to say. Record yourself speaking for 2 minutes about something you know well. Listen afterward. Do not judge your accent or voice. Study your structure. Notice where you repeat a point. Notice where you use unnecessary words. Notice where a sentence becomes difficult to follow. Then record the same explanation again using fewer words. This exercise can reveal something surprising. You may discover that the second explanation is not only shorter but also stronger. Removing unnecessary language forces you to decide what matters. That decision improves your thinking. Another way to test clarity is to ask someone to explain your message back to you. This is especially useful after giving instructions. You can say, "Just to make sure I explained it clearly, what will you do first?" Their answer shows whether your message was understood. If they misunderstand, do not immediately blame them. Check whether your explanation left room for confusion. This habit is valuable at work. A manager may believe an instruction was obvious, while several employees understand it differently. The problem may not be effort. It may be unclear communication. State the task, the expected result, the deadline, and any important limits. People work better when they know exactly what is required. Simple speech also helps during disagreements. Avoid making your position unnecessarily complicated. State what you believe and why. If someone asks for more detail, provide it. Do not bury your main point under a long defense. Suppose someone asks why you rejected a proposal. Instead of giving a 10-minute explanation, start with the key reason. The cost is too high for the expected result. Then explain the numbers. This allows the listener to understand the decision before examining the supporting information. There is an important difference between simplifying an idea and making it inaccurate. Never remove important information simply to make a sentence shorter. If a condition changes the meaning, include it. The goal is not to make every idea extremely simple. The goal is to make every necessary part understandable. This requires deep understanding. A person who has only memorized information often struggles to explain it simply because they do not understand how the pieces connect. A person who understands the principle can usually identify the essential parts. This is why teaching something to another person is such a strong learning exercise. Choose one thing you learned this week and explain it to someone who knows nothing about it. Avoid technical words. Use one everyday example, then ask whether the explanation made sense. If they look confused, do not simply repeat the same sentence louder. Change the explanation. Use different words. Find a better example. Look at the idea from another angle. That skill is important because different people understand information differently. One person may understand numbers immediately. Another may need an example. Someone else may need to see the process step by step. A flexible speaker does not assume that one explanation works for everyone. You should also learn to recognize unnecessary complexity in writing. Before sending an important message, read it once from the other person's perspective. Ask whether they can quickly identify what you want. If you are asking for something, make the request visible. If you are giving information, make the important fact clear. If you need a decision, state exactly what decision is required. This becomes even more important with digital communication because messages lack much of the natural context found in face-to-face conversations. A short sentence can be misunderstood. A vague instruction can create hours of unnecessary work. Take an extra moment to make important messages precise. Do not use complexity to protect yourself from being questioned. Sometimes people speak vaguely because they do not want to commit to a clear position. They use broad language so they can change the meaning later. This may feel safe temporarily, but it reduces trust. Clear speech requires responsibility because people can understand exactly what you mean. There is also a social benefit to speaking simply. People feel more comfortable asking questions when they can understand you. A speaker who uses complicated language may create distance. A speaker who explains things naturally creates room for conversation. You want people to feel comfortable saying, "I do not understand." That gives you a chance to explain instead of allowing confusion to remain hidden. Make clarity your standard, not sophistication. Before an important sentence, ask yourself whether there is a simpler, accurate way to say it. Before explaining a complicated idea, identify the one thing the listener must understand. Before giving instructions, make the expected action specific. Before ending a conversation, make sure both people know what happens next. Practice this every day. Explain your work simply. Tell stories without unnecessary details. Give direct answers. Replace vague words with specific actions. Use familiar examples. Remove filler. Break large ideas into smaller parts. Check whether the listener understood your meaning. Your speech will become more effective as your thinking becomes more organized. You will not need to search for impressive words. You will know the point you want to communicate and the simplest, accurate way to express it. People will spend less time trying to decode your message and more time understanding the value inside it. The strongest speaker in the room is not always the person with the largest vocabulary. It is often the person who can take a difficult idea, understand its important parts, and explain it so clearly that an ordinary person can use it. That is a skill worth practicing every day. Speak so people understand you the first time. Give your main point enough space. Use words that match the listener. Explain difficult ideas with familiar examples. Remove details that do not help. Keep the necessary information intact. Let clarity guide your speech, because the purpose of communication is not to make people notice how well you speak. The purpose is to make sure they understand what you mean. Chapter 9. Handle awkward moments without losing confidence. Awkward moments happen to everyone, including people who communicate extremely well. A name gets forgotten. A sentence comes out wrong. Someone makes an uncomfortable comment. A conversation suddenly becomes quiet. You give an answer that does not make sense. You realize you misunderstood the situation. None of these moments determines your intelligence. What matters is how quickly you recover and how naturally you continue. Many people make an awkward moment worse because they become too focused on themselves. Their attention moves away from the conversation and toward questions such as how they look, what the other person thinks, and whether everyone noticed the mistake. This self-monitoring creates more tension. The person becomes less natural because they are trying to control every impression. The first useful lesson is simple. Do not treat every uncomfortable moment as an emergency. Most small social mistakes disappear quickly when you do not give them extra attention. People are usually more focused on their own behavior than on yours. You may remember your mistake for hours, while the other person has already moved on. This does not mean ignoring serious mistakes. It means judging the size of the problem accurately. Forgetting someone's name is a small communication problem. Insulting someone intentionally is different. Giving incorrect information at work may require correction. A small awkward moment needs a different response from a serious mistake. Good judgment begins by knowing the difference. Suppose you say the wrong person's name during a conversation. Do not create a long explanation. Correct yourself naturally. Sorry, I meant Sarah. Then continue. The mistake has been acknowledged and repaired. Adding several sentences about how embarrassed you are only keeps attention on the error. This principle works in many situations. You mispronounce a word. Correct it and continue. You misunderstand a question. Say that you misunderstood and answer again. You make an inappropriate comment. Acknowledge it and apologize. You forget a detail. Admit that you do not remember and check it later. Confidence does not require pretending that mistakes never happen. One of the strongest social skills is the ability to recover without becoming defensive. Imagine someone tells you, "That sounded rude." You could immediately explain that you did not mean it that way. Your intention may be innocent, but defending your intention before understanding the impact can make the moment worse. A better response may be, "I can see how it sounded that way. Let me say that differently." You take responsibility for the communication without attacking yourself. This approach keeps your dignity intact. You are not saying that you are a bad person. You are acknowledging that your words created an unwanted effect. That distinction allows you to repair the situation without becoming overwhelmed by shame. Silence can also feel awkward because people believe they must fill it immediately. They begin talking about anything. They make unnecessary jokes. They explain themselves too much. They create more words simply because the room became quiet. You do not need to repair every silence. Sometimes the conversation simply needs a moment. Learn to remain physically comfortable during quiet moments. Keep your posture natural. Breathe normally. Look at the other person without staring. Let the conversation restart when someone has something useful to add. This is especially helpful in professional situations where people may need time to consider information. Another common awkward moment happens after you ask a question and receive a short answer. You may assume the conversation is failing. Instead of forcing another subject, ask something connected to what they already said. If they mention that they recently changed jobs, ask what led to the change. If they mention a difficult project, ask what part has been hardest. The conversation becomes easier when you follow real information instead of searching for a perfect topic. You should also stop expecting yourself to be interesting every second. This expectation creates unnecessary pressure. Good conversations contain ordinary moments. People pause. People search for words. People misunderstand small things. People change subjects. Natural communication is not a performance that must remain exciting from beginning to end. Confidence becomes stronger when you accept ordinary imperfections. You do not need the perfect response to every comment. You do not need a clever answer to every joke. You do not need to make every person laugh. Your job is to participate honestly and communicate clearly. A useful recovery technique is to name the problem briefly and move forward. Suppose you lose your train of thought during a presentation. Say, "I lost my point for a second. Let me come back to it." Then look at your notes or return to the last idea. The audience does not need a dramatic explanation. They need you to continue. The same approach works during conversations. If you say something confusing, you can say, "That came out badly. What I mean is this." Then give the clearer version. This teaches your mind that a poor sentence is not the end of the conversation. You can repair communication after speaking. Another important skill is handling questions you cannot answer. Awkwardness often appears because people feel embarrassed by not knowing something. They start guessing. That creates a greater problem. A confident response can be simple. "I do not know enough about that to answer accurately." Then, if necessary, offer to find the information. Honest uncertainty is easier to manage than false confidence. You may also encounter people who deliberately create uncomfortable moments. They make personal comments. They tease you in front of others. They ask questions designed to embarrass you. Your first reaction may be to become defensive or aggressive. Instead, decide whether the comment deserves engagement. Sometimes a calm question is enough. "Why are you asking that?" The person may realize that their comment was inappropriate. You have not attacked them. You have simply placed attention on their behavior. Another option is a direct boundary. "I would rather not discuss that." Then move to another subject. Do not feel responsible for making every person comfortable. Respect matters, but healthy communication also requires boundaries. A person can be polite without answering every personal question. You can decline a conversation without insulting the other person. You can leave an uncomfortable discussion without needing to prove anything. Awkward moments also become easier when you stop trying to control other people's opinions. Someone may misunderstand you. Someone may dislike your answer. Someone may think you are too quiet. Someone may think you speak too slowly. You can improve your communication, but you cannot manage every person's interpretation. Focus on what you can control. You can be respectful. You can be accurate. You can correct mistakes. You can listen. You can choose your words. You can decide when to continue and when to step away. This gives you a practical standard instead of depending on constant approval. A valuable exercise is to deliberately practice small moments of imperfection. Tell someone when you do not know an answer. Ask for clarification instead of pretending to understand. Admit a minor mistake without giving a long explanation. These experiences teach your nervous system that embarrassment is uncomfortable but manageable. You can also review awkward moments without attacking yourself. Ask 3 practical questions. What exactly happened? What did I do that helped or hurt the situation? What will I do differently next time? Then stop reviewing it. Endless replay does not create improvement. A short review followed by action does. Your body deserves attention too. Awkwardness often produces physical signs such as a tight stomach, warm face, tense shoulders, or a sudden desire to escape. Notice these sensations without treating them as proof that something terrible is happening. Your body is reacting to social pressure. You can remain present while the sensation passes. Breathing slowly can help reduce unnecessary tension. So can placing both feet on the floor and relaxing your hands. These actions are simple, but they give your attention something stable to focus on. You are reminding yourself that you are still in control of your behavior, even though the moment feels uncomfortable. Another useful habit is learning to laugh at small mistakes without using humor to hide serious problems. If you spill water during a casual conversation, a brief smile and a simple cleanup are enough. You do not need to turn the event into a long apology. Small mistakes become smaller when you handle them normally. The deeper lesson is that confidence does not come from avoiding awkward situations. It develops through repeated recovery. Every time you make a small mistake and continue calmly, you learn something important. You learn that discomfort can pass. You learn that people can accept correction. You learn that your reputation does not collapse because of one imperfect sentence. This changes the way you enter conversations. You become less afraid of making mistakes because you know what to do afterward. You can correct yourself. You can apologize. You can ask another question. You can change the subject. You can pause. You can continue. Practice this today. Notice one moment that feels slightly uncomfortable and resist the urge to escape it through unnecessary talking. Stay present. Handle the situation directly. Use the fewest words needed to repair what needs repair. Then continue with the conversation. Your confidence becomes more stable when it is based on recovery rather than perfection. You do not need every conversation to go exactly as planned. You need the ability to remain yourself when something unexpected happens. That ability makes you calmer, more natural, and more trustworthy because people can see that a small mistake does not control your behavior. Speak, listen, correct, continue, and keep your attention on the conversation rather than your embarrassment. The moment will pass. The lesson can remain. Each time you recover without losing control, you become better prepared for the next unexpected situation, and your confidence becomes less dependent on everything going perfectly. Chapter 10. Practice thinking fast in everyday conversations. Fast thinking is not something you wait to discover. It is a communication skill that becomes stronger through repeated use in ordinary situations. You do not need a special environment to develop it. Your breakfast conversation, phone call, workplace discussion, family talk, and short interaction with a stranger can all become practice. The mistake many people make is trying to become faster by forcing themselves to speak faster. That usually creates the opposite result. The mouth moves quickly while the thought remains incomplete. Real improvement comes from making your mind quicker at recognizing information, connecting ideas, choosing a response, and expressing it clearly. Start with conversations that have very little pressure. Ask yourself to answer simple questions without preparing a long response. Someone asks what you did today. Give the main event and one useful detail. Someone asks what you think about a movie. State your opinion and explain the main reason. Someone asks about your plans. Give the relevant information directly. This daily practice trains your brain to identify the center of a subject. You are teaching yourself that an answer does not need to contain everything you know. It needs to contain what the other person needs at that moment. A useful exercise is the 10-second response. Choose a familiar subject. Give yourself 10 seconds to decide your main point, then speak for 30 seconds. Do not memorize anything before starting. Your task is to organize your thoughts quickly and communicate them in a natural way. Use different subjects each day. Explain something you learned at work. Describe a decision you made. Talk about a book. Explain a problem you solved. Give your opinion about a common issue. The variety matters because real conversations do not give you the same subject repeatedly. After speaking, examine your answer. Did you reach the main point quickly? Did you become distracted by unnecessary details? Did you repeat an idea because you were searching for words? Did your explanation have a clear beginning and ending? This review turns ordinary conversation into deliberate training. Another powerful exercise is answering unexpected questions. Ask a friend to give you random topics. You might receive questions about travel, work, food, money, learning, habits, or difficult decisions. Take a few seconds and respond. The goal is not to produce a perfect answer. The goal is to become comfortable organizing thoughts without preparation. This practice teaches an important lesson. You already know more than you think. Often the problem is not a lack of information. It is difficulty retrieving and organizing that information under time pressure. Regular retrieval makes useful knowledge easier to access. You can strengthen this ability through daily explanation practice. Choose one idea and explain it in 3 different ways. First, explain it to a child, then explain it to a coworker, then explain it to someone who already knows the subject. The basic idea stays the same, but the language changes according to the listener. This develops mental flexibility. You stop depending on one memorized explanation. You learn to change your words while keeping your meaning stable. That ability is extremely useful during real conversations because people understand information differently. Another practical method is comparison. Take 2 ordinary things and explain one meaningful difference between them. Compare working alone with working in a team. Compare saving money with increasing income. Compare planning a task with starting immediately. This exercise forces your mind to identify important distinctions quickly. You can also practice giving reasons. Choose a simple opinion and support it with 2 reasons. Then challenge your own position with 1 reasonable objection. This teaches you to build a balanced response instead of reacting only from your first thought. For example, you may believe that people should work early in the morning. Explain why. Then ask yourself who might disagree and why. Perhaps someone has more energy at night. Now you have considered another perspective. This process makes your thinking more flexible and gives you more material for conversation. Do not practice only while sitting alone. Use real situations. At lunch, ask a coworker a thoughtful question and listen to their answer. Then respond with 1 related observation. During a family conversation, take an ordinary topic and explore it with curiosity. During a phone call, practice remembering important details instead of immediately changing subjects. Your memory also matters. Strong conversation depends partly on remembering what people tell you. After meeting someone, remember one detail about their work, interest, project, or recent experience. Later, ask about it naturally. This gives future conversations a real connection and shows that you paid attention. Another exercise is the 1-minute summary. At the end of a meeting, lesson, video, or conversation, summarize the main point aloud in 1 minute. Do not repeat every detail. Identify what mattered most, what was decided, and what happens next. This trains your mind to organize information rapidly. You can make the exercise harder by reducing the time. Start with 1 minute, then try 45 seconds, then 30. The goal is not to speak as quickly as possible. The goal is to identify important information without losing accuracy. There is also value in practicing silence during these exercises. After hearing a question, allow yourself a short moment to organize the answer. Fast thinking does not require instant speech. A trained mind can process quickly while the speaker remains calm. Your objective is efficient thinking, not visible urgency. Use everyday problems as mental exercises. You are late for an appointment. Explain the situation in 1 sentence and state your next action. A customer complains. Identify the actual issue and propose a solution. A friend asks for advice. Ask what outcome they want before giving your opinion. These moments develop practical thinking because the information is real and the consequences are immediate. You should also practice changing your answer after receiving new information. This is one of the strongest tests of flexible thinking. Give yourself an initial opinion about a simple issue, then introduce a new fact that could affect the decision. Ask yourself whether your answer should change. If it should, change it without feeling embarrassed. A person who cannot revise their thinking may sound confident, but becomes difficult to reason with. A person who can update their view shows mental strength. Real intelligence includes the ability to respond to new information rather than protecting an old answer. Another useful habit is learning to summarize another person's position before giving your own. Someone explains an idea. You state what you believe they mean, then offer your response. This prevents you from answering the wrong point and teaches you to switch between listening and reasoning efficiently. Your vocabulary can also improve through active use. Choose one new useful word each day and use it naturally in a sentence. Do not collect difficult words simply to sound educated. Learn words that help you describe real situations more precisely. Better vocabulary gives your thinking more accurate ways to express itself. Reading aloud can help as well. Spend 5 minutes reading a well-written page. Focus on pronunciation, pacing, and sentence structure. Then close the page and explain the main idea without looking. This combines language practice with memory and comprehension. At the end of each day, ask yourself where your thinking felt slow. Maybe you struggled to explain an idea. Maybe you could not remember a name. Maybe you became confused during disagreement. Choose one weakness and practice it tomorrow. Improvement becomes easier when you train specific problems instead of trying to become generally better. You can create a simple weekly routine. Spend a few minutes each morning reviewing one useful idea. During the day, have one conversation where you deliberately practice quick organization. In the evening, summarize something you learned. Once a week, record yourself answering unexpected questions and listen to the results. Do not judge your progress by how impressive you sound. Look for measurable changes. Are your answers more organized? Are you using fewer unnecessary words? Can you explain an unfamiliar subject more clearly? Can you respond to disagreement without becoming confused? Can you remember important details from conversations? These are better signs of improvement than simply speaking faster. There will still be moments when you need time. Take it. A person who thinks quickly does not need to answer everything immediately. Sometimes the smartest response is to gather information before speaking. Speed is useful only when it protects accuracy rather than damaging it. Your final practice should happen in the conversations you already have. Do not wait until you feel ready. Speak with family. Speak with co-workers. Speak with friends. Ask questions. Explain ideas. Give opinions. Listen carefully. Adjust your response when new information appears. Every conversation gives your mind another opportunity to organize itself. The purpose of all this practice is not to turn you into someone who talks constantly. It is to make you mentally prepared. You want to recognize the subject quickly, understand what matters, access useful knowledge, form a clear position, and express it in words that fit the moment. That ability develops quietly through repetition. One clear answer becomes another. One useful question leads to another. One difficult conversation teaches you something that improves the next one. Your thinking becomes more organized because you keep asking your mind to process real situations instead of relying only on theory. Keep practicing in ordinary moments. Turn simple questions into short thinking exercises. Turn daily conversations into opportunities to learn. Turn mistakes into information about what needs improvement. Stay curious about people and subjects you do not fully understand. Give yourself permission to pause when accuracy matters. The person who speaks intelligently is not necessarily the person who responds the fastest. It is the person whose mind can remain useful while the conversation changes. They can listen, understand, adjust, explain, and decide without losing control. Build that ability through daily practice, and the conversations that once made you nervous will become situations you know how to handle. You do not need to become the loudest person in the room to become the person people listen to. You need to become the person who thinks clearly before speaking. From this moment forward, notice what happens inside your mind before your words come out. Notice the urge to answer too quickly. Notice the pressure to prove yourself. Notice the moments when you stop listening because you are already preparing your reply. These small moments are where your real progress begins. Remember this: your intelligence is not measured by how quickly you speak. It is revealed by how clearly you think before you speak. Take a second before answering. Listen carefully. Ask a better question. Choose simple words. Stay calm when challenged. Keep learning. Practice during ordinary conversations. You will make mistakes. You will sometimes give the wrong answer. You will have moments when the perfect words arrive too late. Do not let those moments discourage you. Use them as training. The next time you walk into a conversation, do not focus on sounding smart. Focus on understanding. Because the real goal of Speak Like a Genius, How to Think Fast Before You Speak, is not to help you impress people. It is to help you become the kind of person who can think clearly when it matters. Keep learning, keep listening, keep practicing, and come back for the next lesson, because there is always another level of thinking to develop.